Hello everyone, what's up? Our March Community Spotlight is a very special one featuring Star Wars Legion, Horus Heresy, and for the first time, a military scale model. So if you're into weathering and you want to see some current examples of work from Risk for Terra Patreon supporters, this video is for you. Whether you're a wargamer or a scale modeler, if you want to learn more about weathering, start now by subscribing and clicking the bell. I know many people out there, including fellow modeling YouTuber John Bios, are going to be green with envy when they see Amy's amazing lad, just as I was. The model itself is really stunning in Star Wars Legion scale, which is approximately 1/47th by the way, but Amy has really done it justice with this heavily weathered paint job. She explains that her army is set in the final weeks of the Clone Wars and the Gar had been fighting nearly constantly for 3 to 4 years. In keeping with this narrative, Amy wanted to portray that gunships would likely be resprayed between war zones, with only essential maintenance being done in between. I think Amy conveyed this theme really well through the use of weathering techniques or products such as pin washing, ammo shaders, or streaking effects, some of which she was using for the first time on this model. Nice touches like the decals or the crew also made it clear that this project was a labor of love. As often happens in our Discord, Amy not only received great feedback, but she was able to gain invaluable insights thanks to one of our members. This time it was James, who in real life works with military aircraft. As Amy explains, James provided her with detailed explanations on how real-life weathering works on an aircraft. Awesome work, Amy, and we hope to see more Star Wars Legion stuff from you very soon. This is Jan's latest creation, an imposing Sons of Horus Shadow Sword Super Heavy Tank. Wow, that was a mouthful. What a fantastic looking vehicle, isn't it? What would you say if I told you that most of it was completely scratch built? Yes, that's right, Jan made most of it out of plastic art. Even though I have seen quite a few of Jan's conversions and scratch builds, this one thoroughly amazed me. Jan explains that he built the Shadow Sword using the leftovers from a Forge World glaive kit. Waste not, want not, huh? Although he claims that this was just another Sons of Horus paint job for him, using his well-known scheme, I must say that the textures that he achieved on the hull are some of the best that I've ever seen. Instead of garish airbrush highlights, we have a subtle mix of lights and shadows, and instead of edge highlights, we have polished metal achieved through the use of a graphite pencil. Like yours truly, Jan also dabbles in scale models, which explains why he tells us that the part he enjoyed the most was seeing how a plain gray starts to look more like polished steel. Like Amy, Jan also mentions how he enjoys the constant exchange of ideas and feedback with the whole Risk for Terra community. Well, Jan, you're an integral part of that community, and we're looking forward to your next project. Lucas and I started painting Heresy models at the same time, but when we did, he was a student in my Warhammer school club. As a former Iron Hands player, and as a scientist now in real life, Mechanicum seems like a logical choice. Pun intended. These Sinister Thalax are some of his first Mechanicum models, and they are also the first ones where he's used weathering extensively. For example, this was Lucas's first time using pigments, enamel washes, or chipping. Looking at the tasteful and subtle textures on those armor panels, one would assume that this had been done by someone with years and years of experience with these techniques. Those pitted, rusty panels really look amazing. Lucas explains that the most important lesson was that weathering turned out to be relatively easy to do, and he highlights how much fun this project was for him. Unlike most 30K painters, Lucas has fully embraced what I call the dark side of painting, ditching acrylics in favor of lacquers and enamels. In turn, this has allowed him to enjoy airbrushing a lot more, whilst getting, as you can see, really excellent results. In terms of inspiration, Lucas mentions my video on weathering metals, and how, following this example, he airbrushed an engine grime enamel wash over each entire model. Most crucially, however, he explains that the general atmosphere and advice available on the Discord was tremendously helpful. He concludes that it's always useful to get feedback on your progress and to bounce ideas off of people. Impressive. Most impressive. This is a video of firsts, so it's only fitting that we feature a Primark for the first time. Paul spent weeks working on the Sire of the Imperial Fists and on an entourage of Custodes, and I think the attention to detail really shows here. Painting Dorn with his majestic golden armor forces one to carefully consider how to paint metals. Some would go for non-metallic metals, which personally I dislike, no matter how expertly done. Others would use true metallic metals, but then abuse edge highlights to create the illusion of light. Paul has instead opted to convey the idea of dark, aged gold, which I applaud. Now I know that I'm repeating the word texture over and over again, but it is precisely this on the golden armor that I like best. The use of oil washes was key in my opinion to achieving this finish, but doing this instead of our more familiar acrylics on such an expensive model must have been a hard decision to make initially. Talking about how my videos inspired him, Paul explains, "They allowed me to have the confidence to cover my paint job with loads of heavy oil washes and take the plunge." Well, Paul, to be honest, for me that is the highest compliment I could ever receive, and I'm really looking forward to your next Primark? Like myself, Rick has always been interested in history, and is now rediscovering historical scale models. If you have seen his Warhammer work, you will know that he's not only very good at weathering, but also constantly experimenting and innovating. This 1/35th scale half-track is a prime example of that. This was Rick's first time using photo etch, his first time using metal tracks, his first time using burnishing fluid, and also applying whitewash camo. Well, Rick, not only is the whole model amazing, but it's precisely the tracks that are my favorite. They look absolutely stunning. Talking about how he tried all those new products, Rick explains that it's been a real step forward for me and my skills, and has reawakened my enthusiasm for scale models. In terms of inspiration, Rick kindly mentions my Panzer I videos, even though his tracks are vastly superior to mine for one, but more importantly, he mentions that the general enthusiasm and support from the Discord gang is always helpful and it's always good fun to be a part of it. I'd like to mention that both Rick and myself have been inspired lately by the Plastic Posse podcast, which I highly recommend, and by the scale modeling work of TJ, one of the hosts, who is now also a member of the Race for Terra Discord. Until now, scale modelers and wargamers have been isolated from each other, in completely separate camps. Rick's work is a prime example of how learning from each other is really the way forward. Before you go guys, let me tell you that I'm really proud of how rich and varied the Race for Terra community has become. Where else can you see people working on military models, working on Star Wars, and on Horus Heresy in the same video? Gatekeeping? Not here. So if you also want to participate in a monthly community spotlight like this, compete in our weathering quiz, or participate in online weathering events, have a look at my Patreon page. Thank you all, and remember, keep it up and weather it out.